This is a tutorial on how to sell cars privately to maximize your profit. When you sell a car privately, you can make between $1,000 and $3,000 more for a car that's between $5,000 and $10,000, selling it privately as opposed to trading it in or taking it to CarMax. The car in this video is a $5,000 vehicle, and I'm going to sell it for $2,200 more than that privately. That's an increase of profit by around 50% that I would otherwise just be leaving on the table if I traded the car in. A lot of people are apprehensive to sell cars privately because they think it's more of a hassle or something like that. If you follow a simple procedure, it's not more of a hassle and you always make more money selling a car privately. I'll show you the process that I've used successfully for over 10 years. There are so many tools nowadays at your disposal when you're selling vehicles that help you determine the value of the vehicle and also help you sell the vehicle as well. These tools are almost all free, and I'll show you which ones that I use that are quick and easy. You can increase the value of your car dramatically the day before you sell it. I'll show you the steps that I use to increase the value of cars by up to $1,000 the day before I sell them. That's $1,000 a day. That's a lot of money. When you sell a car, your safety is the top priority, and when you're handling large amounts of money, it's always a concern. I'll show you how to receive large payments. So if you're selling a $40,000 Mercedes, I'll show you how to get paid for that Mercedes, and I'll show you where to get paid and how that whole transaction will transpire. And this procedure works for expensive vehicles and it works for less expensive vehicles as well. When you sell anything, screening people is important. And when you sell vehicles, it's probably more important because the stakes are higher. I'll show you how I've successfully screened people for over 10 years. Let's get started. The first thing you have to do is figure out what your car's value is. So go to KBB, Kelley Blue Book, do my car's value, get the Blue Book value. In our case, I'm selling a 2010 Mazda 3, mileage 112,000. Sedan, touring, next. Standard equipment. The color of the car that I am going to try to sell right now is gray. Good. This just gives you a ballpark estimate of what your car's value is. Trade-in value. If you were to go trade this car in, they'd probably give you $2,400 at a dealership or CarMax. But if you were to go sell it privately, you get $4,600. So like I said before, this is over $2,000 more money if you sell this vehicle privately. And it does not take much more work. Next, you're going to want to open up a new window and go to autotrader. I use autotrader. People use other websites, but to me they're all the same thing. You want to be able to flip back and forth between these two very quickly. Therefore, it helps to have a computer, preferably a computer like that. Repeat the same thing here. Go to the popular makes, Mazda, Mazda 3, and then do minimum year 2010. You're trying to find out what the bottom of the market is here. Mileage. This one has 112, so we're gonna pick 100 under 150,000. For the trim, I usually, for a car that's this high volume, I'll just pick the exact trim. Touring, the color, let's do gray. And sort this price lowest. You just wanna see what the bottom of the market looks like at this mileage range. Here's one with 108,000 miles for 9,000. That's a sponsored. You have to avoid the sponsored listings because they're usually just, they're not accurate. Here's one that's newly listed. This is a 2011, so slightly newer, a little bit more mileage, 145,000, and this one's for $4,000. AutoTrader gives you this great price rating that's based on the Blue Book, which is pretty cool. This one's a 71,000 mile one, touring for $4,500. That one almost seems suspect because the mileage is that low. I could be wrong, as in the title might be bad or maybe it was in a big collision or something like that. It just seems a little odd, but maybe it's not. Here's a 2010, similar to the one that I'm selling, 122,000 miles, so close to the one that I'm selling, and 4,600. And then here's one, I like to try to bracket it. So here's one that actually has less miles than the one that I'm selling. It's newer than the one I'm selling. It's $5,500. Basically, I would expect to get at absolute maximum $5,500 for the car that I'm selling, and that would be extremely good if I got $5,500. But I'm going to show you something that often occurs when you're searching for cars, and this is one of the tricks that I use. And this is an example of a search that I did recently. That's why I remember it. Go to Audi. I'm going to Audi S5. German cars are notorious for this, what I'm about to show you. But when you're searching for cars or when you're selling cars, you have to be extremely wary of this. And it's going to tie into the next thing I talk about. Minimum year 2013, mileage, do low mileage, like less than 30,000. And for transmission, pick a manual. This is a very uncommon combination for this car. And it turns out in the country, there are only a handful of these. There's only 3 results in the entire country. And I have one of these cars. So I regularly search this just out of curiosity. But this is a certified used, that's a really good deal, 2015 Audi S5 manual white for $34,000. And it seems to me maybe a little high price, but it's reasonable. And you see this one, look at the one down here, this 2015, much newer year than 2013, 24,000 miles only, so barely any miles, $23,000. Looks like a really good deal. All the pictures look good. The car checks out. Everything looks good on here. The description is great, and it's way under the Blue Book fair market value. An inexperienced buyer would take this and maybe think it was a good deal and go buy the thing. But before you do anything, because you can get a Carfax on this obviously and see if it's been in an accident, take this VIN number and then open up a new window, paste it in the new window, and then just go to Google Images. And look at this the first 2 images on Google have this VIN number with this exact car. It's in a salvage yard. That is the VIN number. You can go to the website even and check it out. So here it is. There's that Audi. Front end damage, smashed up. Go back to AutoTrader and this is the car. Look, they even took a picture right from the front that was smashed. But you have to do this whenever you're searching for a car. You want to Google search the VIN. And I already did that on the car that I'm selling, the Mazda, and it came up clean. But you have to do that before a Carfax even, because it's cheap, it's free, and the internet's huge. That being said, that's also not foolproof, because if you go back to this page, this car looks like a really good deal as well. It's basically the same mileage, 2014, and it's around the same price, $25,000. Looks like an absurdly good deal. I'm tempted to go look at this thing. That's how good of a deal it is. I don't know what the history of this car is, but this one, let's search this one. Yeah, so it doesn't come up anywhere. It doesn't look like it's been in a wreck, but that's a really quick way to just search a VIN number. Now at this step, let's say we're still looking at the Mazda. We would go to Carfax and then get Carfax reports. This actually costs money, but it's worth it because Carfax does a phenomenal job of tracking accidents, damages, repairs, everything that happens to a car. You'd put in the VIN number, get the Carfax report, and you'd pay for, depends on what you do. I buy and sell a lot of cars, so for me, I buy these in bundles, and so it costs me like $15 or something for each Carfax report. But you could do one report for $40. I would run a report even if I was selling a car, if I was unsure what the history was. For example, people have asked me to sell cars for them, and when I run a Carfax, it comes up with a salvage title, and they said that the title was clean. So I would have been screwed if I tried to sell the thing. It just gives you insight into the history of the car. Here's the Carfax of the Mazda that I am planning on selling. $6,000 retail value. Obviously, this looks a little high, but retail might mean that it's being sold from a dealership or something like that. Service history, personal vehicle, and it will show you what affects the vehicle's value. Accidents were reported on the Mazda, and there's an open recall that has since been addressed by the owner. For Carfaxes, I just scan down them and just check to see that none of these are red. When they're red, it is an issue. So this car has had a couple of fender benders that I know about. Let's see what those turn up as. But a Carfax is really good if you're a seller too, because, for example, if you have a really expensive car and you bring it to a dealership for service, it always comes up on the Carfax. It shows you're a diligent owner. And knowing that from a seller standpoint is important. You want to be able to track good things that you do to your vehicle. For example, the Audi that I have, I bring to Audi for oil changes, even though I bring I bring them all the oil and the filter and the washer. But okay, here is the damage report. Accident reported, moderate damage, damage severity scale, moderate. It tells you exactly where the damage occurred on the car. Now when I sell this car, if there are questions about it, I can say, yes, the car has been in some fender benders. Were they big? No, they were moderate accidents. They weren't. The car does not have a salvage title. It was not a total loss vehicle by the insurance company. And when cars have a salvage title, it will come up on here, total loss vehicle. It'll say it's a salvage title, and it'll be extremely obvious. And I've seen a lot of Carfaxes like that as well. I've had people coming to my house ready to sell me a car, and I'm talking to them. I'm like, hey, just give me the VIN number, please. They read it off to me. I run a Carfax, and I'm like, no deal. No deal. This thing, you didn't tell me this, and this car has been in a horrendous wreck. And this Mazda is not like that. I feel comfortable moving forward on it. I've chosen to detail the Mazda before I sell it. I think I can add more value to it. The windshield wiper blades are rusty. I have to replace those. It's easy, and it's related to the safety of the vehicle. The paint's good. Alloy wheels. Interior looks really good as well. The screw was rusty, so I repainted it, and now it stands out even more. I'm gonna get the rust out of that crevice so it blends in. There was dog hair all over this interior that was really hard to remove. It was hours of vacuuming. Looks clean now though. Here's the rear end. You can't tell that it was in an accident. There's a little white paint scuff right there that I'm gonna wet sand out. Car repair shops put these stickers on windows and underneath hoods. If the mileage aligns with the actual odometer, I just leave them on because it shows you're a diligent owner. And I always check the odometer, make sure it matches all of your existing documentation in the Carfax, and no check engine lights. This is not a detailing video. I'll post a different video in the description below showing how I detail cars. I promise I have a background that's very conducive to detailing cars well though. I detail my cars before I sell them because I can increase the value. My guess is by $1,000 if you make a car look just gleaming, absolutely pristine clean versus a dirty car off the street. Look how clean this thing looks because the paint is in good shape. It looks like it just rolled out of the factory. There's some condensation in the headlights, but you have to decide whether or not detailing a car is worth it for you. It's not always worth it. Maybe it's not worth it based on the condition of the car. If there was rust all over this thing, I wouldn't have done it. But in this case, I think it was worth spending a couple hours of my evening getting this thing in tip-top shape. Once you get the car clean and working, it's time to list it for sale. I forgot, before you list it, you have to take some good pictures. And for pictures, I just use my cell phone because cell phones are better than 10-year-old $1,000 cameras. To sell cars, you can go basically anywhere, but you could go to eBay or you could go to Craigslist. If you want to go to eBay, you can get a larger national audience, but you also have to deal with a more complicated payment system, and you have to deal with people coming from different states and things like that. I like to see if I can sell my cars locally as fast as possible. Therefore, I go with Craigslist. I'll just show you how to post a car on Craigslist really quick. Craigslist is really good for local listings. So right up here, create a posting. Then you just go for sale by owner, and you can go down here to cars and trucks. And you put in all the information right here, and then it lists. You have to pay $5 to list the car. And you can put as much detail as you want, but everything in green is necessary to put in. It asks you what the title status is, and I'll show you the ad right now. Wrong window. Here's the ad for the Mazda 3 on Craigslist. I just put this up. It's 9 o'clock the first night, and I put in my actual zip code here because I'm selling this car locally. It's probably going to be a local buyer, and I'm not that uncomfortable selling this car right now. I live alone. In the past, when I've sold things like wheels or various car parts, motors and things like that, sometimes I put a different zip code than where I live, and then I go meet the people somewhere public, like a gas station or parking lot. And in that case, and I might do that here too, what I do is I'll tell the people what city I live in, and then when they're on their way to my house, then I give them the actual address, like when they're halfway there or something like that. I don't give them my full address right away, and I just wait until I'm confident that it's a good person that I'm talking to, and I screen them. And I'll explain that in a little while. But here are the pictures that I just took of the Mazda. I put a lot of really high quality pictures up on Craigslist because the more information, the better, and it minimizes the amount of questions you get from potential buyers. These are some pretty good pictures. Interior, the odometer one, trunk, and then I did the motor as well. And then I did a close-up of the condensed headlights. I just don't want anybody to be surprised when they come here. And with the listings, I never tell a story. Some people tell huge stories on why they're getting rid of cars, but I don't think that you need to tell a story because I think a vehicle can sell itself. I just put the important stuff. 2 owner, that's always good to hear. 2010 Mazda 3. I give them the full name, miles, and car's in good condition. Tires are good. Paint is great. There's no body rust. You could put as much information as you want, and there's always going to be that obsessive buyer that asks for more. I think they just want to make you do something. So no matter how much information I put on the tires, I can put the tread depth. They'll ask something else. So I just wait until that buyer comes along, and then I just oblige and give them what they want. And hopefully they buy it. And then I described the headlights, the fact that it clears up in a day, and the owner had some dog, or had a dog. I don't want them to be surprised by a couple dog hairs in the car. The VIN, I actually put the VIN on this one just so if people ask about it, they can just see it right here. I'm just honest with all the information on here. I don't want any surprises, and I don't need to tell a story. The story is the great pictures. I listed it for $6,000, and as you recall before, $5,500 is what I wanted. So I'm willing to come down $500. And I'll make a hard stand at $5,500, and hopefully I sell for that much because, like I said before, that'd be awesome, and that'd be $2,200 more than the trade-in value. It's already the first day, so I posted the car last night, and I've gotten one response back, and the response I got back I've gotten one person reaching out to me, and they asked me a bunch of weird stuff. So remember how I said that when someone wants to know a lot of information, they just generally ask like everything under the sun. So this guy asked me, what's the condition of the paint? And he said, is there any rust? Is there any dents? And you can tell by looking at the pictures, they're high definition photos, high resolution, that there's definitely no rust, definitely no dents. So I feel like I'm getting punked because the next thing he asked me was, what's the condition of the timing belt? And I have not looked at the timing belt of this car. And in fact, I did a Google search. This car doesn't even have a freaking timing belt. It has a timing chain. So I think he's testing me. That's my theory. Anyways, I wrote back to him. I gave him a bunch of information, and he never responded to me. So maybe he was just trying to punk me. If it looks like my face is all covered in dirt, it's because it is. I was just working in the shop for a while. All right, it's Sunday night. I posted the car on Thursday, and I have a hit. A guy's coming here tomorrow night with his son, apparently, to look at the Mazda 3. I lowered the price to $5,500, and that's when I got the hit, so I think that was the right move. We'll see what happens. Okay, the people showed up. They looked at the car, and they bought it. They bought the car. It's gone. I had to basically close up everything that I was working on because my house looks pretty sketchy right now. Got James's truck up here. We had welding going on. We had a string of cars all the way around the house before, and it looked pretty bad. It looked like a place where people just sell cars, and it's not what this is. So we put everything away, and they came here. They test drove the car, and they bought it. $5,500, baby.
I said I was going to talk about a couple of things related to money transactions, and the first thing I'll talk about is how to get paid safely when you sell a car. The first thing you want to do is get paid either with a cashier's check or a wire transfer, and you want to do both of those at the seller's bank if possible. Both the buyer and the seller will meet at the seller's bank, and you go in and talk to a manager generally and get a manager's attention and say what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is safely get the money from the buyer's account into the seller's account, and you want everyone there involved just so everyone knows kind of what's going on and nothing falls through the cracks. You don't want a teller just to say, hey, it looks like this check has been deposited, and then everyone walks away. This is especially important for cars that are $10,000 or above, but it's also important for less expensive cars as well. Another thing you want to do is draw up a bill of sale. A bill of sale is just a contract that says buyer A bought the car from the seller for X amount of money, $10,000 or whatever, on this date, and have the buyer and the seller, so both of you want to sign the form and then scan that form and have a notary at the bank stamp the document saying that they witnessed both people signing it. And banks always have notaries. And that document doesn't mean much, but if you ended up having to go to a small claims court or something like that, it would help you if you had a signed contract. The last thing you want to do is take both the buyer and seller's driver's licenses and scan them, the front and the back, and make sure all the people involved in the transaction, they match the driver's license. For the Mazda 3 that I just sold, I actually did not meet at a bank. It's COVID-19 right now. Banks are barely even open. So I had to do something extremely risky that I am completely opposed to doing, and that is accept a cashier's check without going to a bank first to have it validated. And that's dangerous, it's sketchy, I know, and it breaks all my rules, but I didn't really have any other option right now, and my transaction was only for $5,500. And how I did this is I got the cashier's check, I made sure that the buyer's name was on the check, my name was on the check, I made sure the check looked legitimate. The check was from a bank in the area where they were from, and I checked and made sure that the bank was real. I deposited the check into my account and watched that it electronically actually went through, so all the routing and the checking number looked like real numbers, which doesn't tell you much, but it's something. And I made sure that everything looked legitimate. If you're selling anything over $10,000, always meet at a bank and have them verify everything. Screening buyers. When you screen buyers, you always want to talk to them on the phone. If someone's unwilling to talk to you on the phone, that's a really bad red flag. Why would somebody not want to talk to you on the phone? Talking to somebody on the phone expresses a lot about them. You get a good read on somebody. They can communicate to you readily. You can get a good idea on what their background is. Anyone who's unwilling to talk on the phone is probably somebody you don't want to do business with. If a person doesn't seem interested in the vehicle, that's also a red flag. Have you ever bought something that you were not interested in seeing or witnessing? It's very rare. Imagine if you were to order something off Amazon and you're at work. A lot of times people are tempted to leave work in the middle of the day, run home and get the package, even if they live in a really safe part of town, or even if whatever they bought was so cheap that if it got stolen, it didn't matter anyways. When someone's buying a car, if they're not showing a lot of interest, that's a big red flag. Another way to screen buyers is if they reach out to you via email, look at their email signature, look at their name and research them. Take their name, Google search it. Do they show up on LinkedIn? If they have an email address that's from a company or a signature, research it. Find out if that name matches that company, if you can find that person at that company. Look, like I said, on social media, see if they have accounts, see if they have images online, arrest records, anything you can find. The internet's huge, and just like Google searching VINs, this is a great way to get some insight onto the buyer or the seller of a car. Another thing is responsiveness. If a buyer is not very responsive, that is a red flag. In business, when you're dealing with people, you can always judge the quality of a customer, or not always, but most of the time you can judge the quality of a customer by how responsive they are to when you reach out to them. And it's the same with selling anything, especially vehicles. If you're selling a vehicle and the person is not responsive to you, it shows that they're either not interested in the vehicle, they have a lot of other stuff going on, or perhaps they're nefarious. Whenever I'm selling a vehicle, I always think, man, I hope the buyer doesn't mind that I'm making them jump through these hoops and logically, safely going through this purchasing transaction. Well, if you're dealing with a buyer who doesn't want to logically, safely pay for a vehicle, it's generally not somebody you want to be associating with. If you're buying a vehicle, you should be excited and you should be willing to jump through a few different hoops to do things the safe, correct way. Lastly, when you're selling a vehicle, it's not a job interview. That means you can ask questions that maybe cross some lines. If you're selling a $40,000 Mercedes, you can ask, what does the person do for a living that's gonna buy the vehicle? Most people do not have $40,000 of cash sitting around. And you just wanna verify, make sure that their story checks out. I've bought and sold cars from a lot of different people, and if they tell you a story, you just wanna make sure it's consistent. You wanna make sure that they're a credible person. When sales start to go south, you generally pick up on it pretty quick and you get better with experience. Usually the communication dies down and you get a lot of red flags. If you're selling a vehicle, don't worry about it. Don't stress out about it, because there are millions of buyers, potential buyers. This is an economy. If you put a car up for sale at a certain price and there's a buyer interested, there's definitely another buyer somewhere that's interested at the same price. Maybe you just have to add some better detail to your listing, or just wait a little while and you'll get another interested buyer. Don't worry about it. If you ever feel uncomfortable in any sale transaction ever, just bail out. It's not a big deal.
I'm gonna do one quick thing before we finish this up. I'm just gonna write right here the KBB trade-in price is shown, $2,400. This is if you were to go trade in that Mazda 3 that I just sold. The actual sales price was $5,500. Here's the delta between the two of these, $3,100. I made $3,100 more than the Kelly Blue Book trade-in price. Then look down here. I am not a finance guy, I'm an engineer, but sometimes I pay attention to finance. People invest their life savings in the stock market so they can make an 8% increase every year, compounding interest. And that's a big deal. And in this transaction, we made 129% more than the trade-in price. It's the coronavirus right now. People aren't even spending money. They're not buying stuff. A lot of people are working reduced hours. The economy is kind of in the tank. I sold this for 129% increase over trade-in value, and you can too. There are some things I probably could have talked about in this video that I didn't, just because I was running out of time, but I could have went through how to haggle, how to stand firm on price, what to say to people to maintain the price that you want, things like that, or just smaller details about filling out titles and things like that. But if you have any questions at all, I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, but my videos are basically blogs where people just ask questions and I give them feedback about anything, no matter how minor. If you have any questions about selling a vehicle, put them in the comment section and I'll be more than happy to respond to you. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching the video. Do the burn. Yes.